Did you notice how The View suddenly stopped mentioning Karoline Leavitt's name on air? That wasn't an accident. ABC just issued a total gag order, and the reason why will shock you. Lit's legal team just got access to over 300 internal emails between The View's producers and high-level political operatives. The result: absolute panic. Just weeks ago, Whoopi and Joy were laughing off Lit's lawsuit, mocking her on national television, but now silence The View's lawyers are scrambling because Leavitt has the receipts, not just accusations, cold hard evidence showing how ABC orchestrated an attack against her. And here's where it gets even wilder: those leaked emails, they expose a secret directive from producers to destroy the credibility of Leavitt and other political figures. That's not journalism, that's a coordinated smear campaign. Meanwhile, ABC executives are in full meltdown mode. They've banned all discussion of the lawsuit on air, and behind the scenes they're begging advertisers not to pull their funding. This is no longer just a lawsuit, this is an expose on how media powerhouses manipulate narratives, and trust me, it's about to get way worse for The View. You know how this all started, with pure arrogance. The moment Karoline Leavitt announced her lawsuit, The View host didn't show concern, they didn't even hesitate, they laughed, they treated it like a joke, like they were too powerful to be touched. Remember that moment? The smug grins, the eye rolls, the dismissive chuckles. They weren't just disagreeing with Karoline, they were mocking the very idea that she could hold them accountable, and then they went straight for character assassination. Whoopi Goldberg didn't just criticize her politics, she tried to erase her entire career with that signature eye roll. Whoopi sneered, without wokeness Karoline wouldn't even have a job. Let that sink in. She didn't debate her views, she told millions of viewers that Karoline had no merit at all, and Whoopi wasn't alone. Sunny Hostin jumped in, doubling down. This is proof of privilege, she declared again. Not a debate, not an opinion, a direct attempt to destroy Karoline's credibility, and it didn't stop there. This wasn't a one-time moment of heated debate, it was a full-blown campaign. Episode after episode, day after day, they kept pushing the same narrative: Karoline is a fraud, she doesn't deserve success, she's not legitimate. And guess what? That's exactly what the lawsuit calls out: defamation, slander, malicious attacks aimed at ruining her career. So how did The View respond? With even more arrogance. It'll be thrown out immediately, they bragged on air, not realizing they were creating Exhibit A in court. Can you imagine being so overconfident that you mock a lawsuit on the very show that got you sued? They might as well have signed a confession. And here's what's truly mind-blowing: one of these women is a former prosecutor. Sunny Hostin should have known better, she should have seen the legal disaster they were walking into, but they were so used to being untouchable, so convinced their platform gave them absolute power, that they just kept pushing. Most people, when hit with a lawsuit, stop digging, they lay low, they get careful. Not The View, they doubled down, they escalated, they made it worse. And while Whoopi and Joy were laughing it up on air, you can bet that ABC's legal team wasn't laughing at all. Behind the scenes, full-scale panic, because when they reviewed the transcripts they knew this wasn't going away. That dismissive handwave from Whoopi, yeah, that might cost ABC $800 million, not $8 million, not $80 million, $800 million. While The View hosts were rolling their eyes, Karoline Leavitt's legal team was compiling a legal nuke. Experts are calling this the most devastating defamation case against a TV show in modern history. And let me tell you something, this isn't just about hurt feelings. Karoline didn't file this lawsuit for an apology and some hush money, she came for war. Her legal team didn't just piece together some random claims, they built a bulletproof case. Every single time The View hosts crossed the line from criticism to character assassination, it's all documented, and now ABC executives are losing their minds. Why? Because this lawsuit doesn't just say The View hosts were biased or unfair, it proves they deliberately spread lies about Karine's career credentials and character. They didn't just disagree with her views, they launched a full-blown attack, trying to destroy her reputation in real time. And here's where it gets even worse for ABC. Legal analysts who have reviewed the case are saying two terrifying words: clear malice. That's the legal threshold needed to win a defamation lawsuit against a public figure. It's not just about proving they were wrong, it's about proving they knew they were wrong. Karoline's team isn't arguing that The View was just being mean, they're proving these women knowingly lied with the explicit goal of ruining her career. At first, The View's producers tried to shrug this off as just another political lawsuit, but Karoline's legal team outmaneuvered them completely. They didn't frame this case as conservative versus liberal, they framed it as career sabotage versus legal consequences. While ABC's PR machine was dismissing the lawsuit, Karoline's attorneys were quietly putting together a case that has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with deliberate defamation. And here's what's really making ABC panic: this lawsuit provides Black and white proof that the View host didn't just spread false information, they did it intentionally. They knew what they were saying was false, they knew they were misrepresenting Karoline's qualifications, and they did it anyway. We're not talking about opinion, we're talking about flat-out lies presented as fact. The View's host didn't just question Karoline's credentials, they fabricated stories about them. They claimed she had 0 qualifications while knowing her actual resume. They suggested she got her job solely because of her looks despite her extensive background. They misrepresented her work history in ways that could make her completely unemployable in politics, and now that's all coming back to bite. While ABC executives were losing sleep, their worst nightmare became reality. What happens when 300 confidential emails exposing a coordinated smear campaign suddenly land in the hands of the person you tried to destroy? The View is about to find out, and it could end multiple careers forever. Let me tell you what's really happening behind ABC's closed doors. These weren't just casual conversations that leaked, these are smoking gun emails. They confirm what people have suspected for years. The View isn't just a talk show, it's a carefully controlled narrative machine. While Whoopi and Joy were laughing on camera, ABC's legal department was in full-blown meltdown mode. Why? Because Karoline Leavitt's team didn't just get a few damaging messages, they got everything. And what's in these emails? Pure, undeniable proof that the View's hosts weren't just making off-the-cuff remarks, they were following a script. One senior producer wrote in black and white, "We need to make an example of Leavitt. She's becoming too influential with young conservatives." Let that sink in. This wasn't about debating ideas, this was about deliberately destroying someone's career because she was reaching an audience they couldn't control. And here's where it gets even more shocking. These emails don't just expose the View's internal bias, they reveal a direct link between the show's producers and outside each other. In closed-door meetings, producers were blaming the legal team was blaming the hosts, the hosts were blaming ABC executives. It was total war inside ABC, with no one willing to take responsibility, and the most embarrassing part, they were so shaken that they had to be coached on how to keep their fear hidden from the public. According to crew members, backstage producers were literally giving them pre-show pep talks like, "Act normal, don't show any concern about the lawsuit, smile like everything's fine." Imagine needing a pep talk just to convince millions of viewers that you aren't falling apart. Let's be real, if you have to be coached on how to act like you're not panicking, you're panicking. The most shocking part of all this, they thought they could keep this act going forever. For years, the View's hosts sat in those chairs, tearing down reputations, mocking lawsuits, and treating real consequences like they didn't exist. Now, suddenly, they were the ones facing those consequences, and the entire world could their facade crumbling in real time. Because here's the truth, this is no longer about politics, this is about accountability. And for the first time ever, the View's hosts are realizing they might not be able to escape it. As the View's hosts were melting down behind the scenes, ABC executives were about to make things 10 times worse with what can only be described as the most disastrous damage control attempt in television history. When a billion-dollar network starts frantically deleting emails, scrubbing social media, and literally offering an 8-figure hush money deal, they're not just worried, they're terrified. Look, ABC didn't just try one desperate move to make this lawsuit disappear, they threw the entire corporate playbook at Karoline Leavitt. Their first genius idea: throw money at the problem, and not just a little. A jaw-dropping $25 million settlement offer. Let that sink in. $25 million, not as compensation, not as an admission of wrongdoing, just to make her go away. Karoline, of course, saw right through it. She didn't hesitate, she immediately rejected what was clear, nothing more than an expensive hush money deal. And that's when ABC truly started panicking. When their cash cannon failed, ABC shifted tactics. They thought, okay, if we can't buy her silence, let's pressure her into it. That's when they started calling in favors. ABC bigwigs reached out to mutual connections, hoping to apply back-channel pressure. They sent their important friends to convince her to back off. Imagine the arrogance. Hey, our host destroyed your reputation on national TV, but our mutual friend says you should just let it go. Unbelievable. Karoline didn't just ignore it, she saw it for what it was: a desperate, weak attempt to manipulate her into dropping the lawsuit. And when that failed, ABC dropped all pretenses and resorted to outright threats. According to leaked reports, their legal team, the same people who privately admitted they had a 70% chance of losing this case, had the audacity to try and bully Karoline into submission. Their threat: if you move forward with this lawsuit, we will destroy your reputation. Let's pause for a second. Karoline Leavitt is suing ABC for defamation, and their brilliant legal strategy was to defame her even more. The Level of stupidity here is unreal. It's like a burglar telling the homeowner drop the charges or I'll rob you again. At this point, ABC wasn't just making mistakes, they were actively proving Karoline's case for her, but nothing compares to what ABC tried next after months of letting The View's host tear this woman apart on live television after dismissing her lawsuit as ridiculous, mocking her career, and personally attacking her credibility. They had the nerve to offer her a job. Yes, really, ABC executives reportedly floated the idea of bringing Karoline in as a commentator, a pathetic attempt to neutralize her by making her one of them. Imagine the pure delusion. Hey, we destroyed your reputation, mocked you for months, and tried to buy your silence, but would you like a job? It was beyond transparent. Karoline wasn't fooled for a second. She turned them down without hesitation because, unlike ABC, she has integrity. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, ABC executives were in full-blown panic mode, and when corporate executives panic, they don't apologize, they cover their tracks. Mass deletion of emails, scrubbing of social media posts, editing and re-uploading video clips to erase past statements. This wasn't just damage control, it was a full-scale cover-up. ABC's legal team knew they were sitting on a ticking time bomb, and they were racing to erase any digital evidence that could further damage their case. But here's the problem: when you start deleting emails and editing old broadcasts, you don't look innocent, you look guilty, and ABC was looking more guilty by the second. While ABC's legal team was busy hitting the delete button, The View's hosts were scrambling to rewrite history. These same women who had spent months gleefully attacking Karoline were suddenly making awkward, half-hearted statements on air. Not apologies, just vague, wishy-washy damage control. You could see the discomfort in their eyes. They had zero remorse. They didn't regret what they said, they just regretted getting caught. The sudden shift from mockery to desperate backpedaling was so jarring that even loyal viewers started questioning what was happening behind the scenes. Every settlement offer rejected, every threat backfiring, every clumsy attempt at PR damage control. ABC wasn't just losing this battle, they were speedrunning their own destruction. They were like a drowning man flailing in the water, not realizing that every frantic movement was pulling them deeper. Because here's the truth: Karoline Leavitt wasn't backing down, she wasn't taking the money, she wasn't falling for the threats, and for the first time in history, ABC and The View were completely powerless to stop it. ABC's panic isn't just about Karoline's lawsuit, it's about what's being unearthed from their darkest corners. Would you believe that The View isn't really a talk show at all, but a carefully controlled propaganda machine with direct pipelines to political power? Players. The documents Karoline's legal team has uncovered reveal something so sinister that ABC executives are literally shaking in their overpriced shoes, and folks, were just scratching the surface of who's really pulling the strings. Let me break this down. Karoline's lawsuit didn't just expose The View's bias, it pulled back the curtain on a system so corrupt it would make your skin crawl. This isn't about a few slanted comments here and there. We're talking about a full-blown influence operation, wearing a daytime talk show costume to manipulate public opinion while hiding behind fake spontaneous discussions. Here's where it gets even worse: internal memos now confirm ABC executives weren't just casually biased, they were receiving direct marching orders from corporate advertisers and political operatives about exactly who to attack on air and who to protect. Think about that for a second. Those heated debates, those dramatic off-the-cuff reactions, all pre-approved. The forced laughter, the fake outrage, the perfectly timed narrative shifts, all choreographed. This wasn't just a biased TV show, it was a carefully constructed media weapon. And it gets even more disturbing: Karoline's lawsuit has exposed direct links between The View's producers and figures working behind the scene in politics, people who never appear on camera but dictate exactly what you see and hear. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's documented. The evidence is so damning that even ABC's political operatives, that means when Whoopi and Joy attack conservatives on air, they aren't just sharing opinions, they're reading from a script. Now, do you see why ABC rushed to silence this lawsuit? It wasn't just about avoiding financial liability, this is full-scale damage control for what might be the biggest media scandal in decades. Sources inside ABC confirmed that when executives first saw these emails, panic erupted at the highest levels. We're talking about meetings, lawyers called in the middle of the night, producers interrogated about who they've been communicating with. ABC knew exactly what was happening, and they let it continue anyway. Here's what nobody expected: the emails don't just target Karoline Leavitt, they reveal a hit list of young rising conservative figures that The View systematically tried to discredit. Anyone gaining traction with younger audiences, they had a plan to take them down. It wasn't about Facts, it was about power, and now the biggest fear inside ABC: this lawsuit might trigger a federal investigation. When you have documented proof that a media giant coordinated false attacks with political operatives, that's no longer just a lawsuit, that's potentially criminal. Executives are scrambling, not because they care about journalistic integrity, but because they know their careers could be over, and now ABC has one move left: either cut the View loose and hope to contain the damage, or double down and risk taking the entire network down with it. ABC thought the View was untouchable. They thought their lawyers could make this lawsuit disappear here. They were dead wrong. 3 weeks after Karoline Leavitt filed her lawsuit, ABC's legal team delivered the bombshell that changed everything. Inside a closed-door emergency meeting, executives sat confident until their own lawyers shattered the illusion. This isn't going away. The evidence is substantial. The damages claim is justified. Silence. Complete suffocating silence. Not some conservative commentator, not a rival network. ABC's own lawyers were admitting the truth: the View was in real danger. The problem: this wasn't just one bad LW suit, this was potentially the biggest defamation case in television history. And then came the number that sent shock waves through the room: hundreds of millions. That's how much ABC stood to lose, not some inflated estimate from Karoline's team. This was ABC's own internal projection. One executive, his voice shaking, finally asked the question on everyone's mind: can't we just pay her off and make this go away? Nope. Karoline's team had already rejected 3 separate settlement offers, 3 chances to sweep this under the rug, 3 rejections. She wasn't after a payout, she wanted accountability, and that's when the final gut punch landed. ABC's top legal expert estimated a 70% chance of losing in court, not a toss-up. Not it could go either way, a 70% chance of complete public humiliation in court. Executives who had been mocking this lawsuit for weeks suddenly looked like they'd seen a ghost. The View's producers, who actively encouraged these attacks, finally realized what they had done. They weren't just dealing with bad PR, they had created a legal disaster so massive that not even ABC's army of lawyers could stop what was coming. And here's where things get even more brutal. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin weren't just facing cancellation. They were personally on the hook. Let that sink in. Not just ABC's money, their own fortunes, mansion savings, multi-million-dollar bank accounts, all of it could be wiped out, because when you knowingly spread lies with malice, the legal shield around you disappears for years. They sat in those chairs mocking lawsuits, destroying reputations, treating accountability like a joke. Now they were the ones being dragged into court, and suddenly it wasn't funny anymore. ABC executives were now in panic mode. A legal loss of this scale wouldn't just mean a payout, it could mean total brand collapse. Now the network was on the verge of civil war. Some executives were desperately trying to save the View. Others saw it as a ticking time bomb that needed to be cut loose immediately. The choice was clear: sacrifice the View or risk the entire network. As ABC executives were scrambling for a way out, the true disaster was unfolding behind the scenes, and it wasn't just legal. The host of The View were unraveling. These women who had spent years mocking others, attacking reputations, and acting untouchable were suddenly experiencing something completely foreign to them: fear. Not the fake outrage they put on for the cameras, not the scripted performative debates. Real career ending, financial ruining fear, and the most damning part, their carefully crafted public image was beginning to crack in ways that even their most loyal fans couldn't ignore. Let me pull back the curtain on what's really happening at The View on air. They were all smiles, smug grins, and dismissive eye rolls. Off air it was absolute chaos. Joy Behar, the same woman who built her entire career on ridiculing conservatives, was caught in a moment of rare raw honesty when she thought no one was listening. This is bad, really bad. Why didn't anyone stop us from saying that stuff? This is the same Joy Behar who just minutes earlier had been confidently laughing off Karoline's lawsuit in front of millions of viewers. Think about that. Her public act versus her private meltdown tells you everything you need to know about how scared they really are. But Joy wasn't alone. Whoopi Goldberg, usually the most confident, untouchable presence on the panel, had an explosive breakdown with producers. Her voice boomed through the backstage hallway. You told us we were protected, now you're saying we're personally liable. Whoopi Goldberg, who has spent years mocking lawsuits, laughing at public scandals, and treating accountability like a joke, just realized that her own fortune is on the line. Not ABC's money, not some PR damage control, her own fortune. This wasn't supposed to happen. For years they believed ABC's lawyers would clean up their messes, their executives would shield them, and no matter what they said on air, they would never face consequences. Now suddenly they were the ones in the Crosshairs, and even Sunny Hostin, the so-called legal expert of the group, the one who loves reminding viewers that she's a former prosecutor, was panicking. According to leaked reports from ABC insiders, Sunny was spotted frantically flipping through transcripts of her past statements about Karoline Leavitt, mumbling to herself, "I called her a fraud on national television. I actually said she fabricated evidence. What was I thinking?" Imagine the sheer irony of a former prosecutor who should understand defamation law better than anyone now realizing she might have incriminated herself on live TV. The Views panel wasn't just panicked, they were starting to realize they had built their own downfall. Here's where it gets even crazier. The situation got so bad that even their own staff, the producers' crew members and ABC insiders who work with them every single day, started leaking stories to the press. When your own team starts turning against you, you know the ship is sinking. One ABC insider described the reality behind the scenes. They're terrified but trying to maintain the illusion that everything's fine. It's complete chaos. Just think about that for a second. These women who constantly lecture America about honesty and integrity were now living a complete lie. On camera, fake confidence, fake bravado, fake certainty. Behind the scenes, pure desperation and the blame game had begun. The same women who had attacked Karoline Leavitt relentlessly were now attacking top executives, are scrambling to contain it. But here's the real kicker: The View wasn't just targeting Karoline Leavitt. The lawsuit proves the show has been running a systematic smear campaign against anyone who threatens the political and corporate interests of their handlers, and it's all laid out in black and white. Leaked emails show the View's producers didn't just cover stories, they were given direct instructions on who to attack, how to frame the narrative, and when to shift public opinion. They so-called hot topics, nothing but scripted hit jobs. The lawsuits, the desperate settlements, the internal panic at ABC, all of it is happening because this deception is finally being exposed. And now ABC executives are facing a horrifying reality. This lawsuit could unravel not just The View but their entire media operation, because The View was just the most visible part of a much larger machine. Would you believe? Karoline lawsuit has uncovered direct text messages between The View producers and high-ranking political operatives. Messages that read like military orders. Consider it done. We'll make sure the hosts address it this week. That's not media bias, that's a full-blown political hit job disguised as a daytime talk show. Let me tell you what's coming out in this lawsuit will make your blood boil. This isn't just friendly chats between The View producers and their political allies. This is a system, a structured, coordinated effort where Washington power players literally ordered hits on their political enemies through a show millions of Americans believed was just entertainment. And folks, this isn't speculation. The court documents expose private communication channels where political consultants weren't just suggesting topics, they were dictating who to attack, when to attack them, and what exact talking points to use. And these weren't random nobodies. We're talking about senior advisors to major campaigns, current administration officials, and corporate interest people with a view on speed dial anytime they needed a public take-on. Here's where it gets even more insane. One of the smoking gun emails directly states, "We need The View to handle the Leavitt situation. She's becoming too effective as a messenger." That's not analysis, that's not journalism, that's a direct order to destroy someone's reputation on national television. And what did The View's producer respond? "Consider it done. We'll make sure the hosts address it this week." Think about that. This show wasn't just pushing biased narratives, it was a political weapon being wielded behind the scenes to eliminate threats in real time. Those spontaneous discussions you saw on TV, all planned in advance by political operatives who needed certain stories pushed that week, and it wasn't occasional. The lawsuit documents regular strategy sessions, feedback loops, even performance reviews where political figures would assess how effectively The View had executed their requests. It's like finding out your favorite coffee shop is actually a mafia front. What looked like casual morning TV was actually a sophisticated media operation. And now Washington is panicking even more than ABC executives, because Karoline's lawsuit doesn't just threaten a TV show, it threatens to expose an entire shadow system of media manipulation that's been operating unchecked for years. Imagine who else could be implicated if these communications become public record in court. Here's what's truly chilling: no one in these messages hesitated, no one questioned if this was ethical. There was no concern about crossing legal or moral lines. They talked about destroying reputations like they were ordering coffee. Now ask yourself, if this level of control existed over The View, how many other shows are secretly taking orders from political co-operatives? How many news stories have actually been orchestrated political takedowns? Karoline's lawsuit isn't just exposing The View, it's pulling back the curtain on a much bigger machine and ABC. Executives know there's no way to put this genie back in the bottle. Money talks in this industry, and right now, it's saying goodbye to The View in what might be the biggest sign yet that this lawsuit is an absolute catastrophe. Major advertisers, companies that have stood by The View through years of scandals, are suddenly fleeing like rats off a sinking ship, and I'm not talking about a few concerned sponsors making noise. This is a full-blown advertiser exodus, the kind that puts television shows on life support. Let me break it down for you. It started with one major corporation quietly requesting their ads be pulled from The View's time slot. No big deal, right? Wrong, because within days that one request snowballed into a corporate stampede toward the exits. ABC executives are in full-blown panic mode. We're talking emergency boardroom meetings, desperate calls to ad agencies, and frantic attempts to stop the financial bleeding, because The View isn't just losing a few sponsors. Internal ABC documents reveal that their advertising revenue has collapsed by over 40% since Karoline's lawsuit went public. Let me put that into perspective: a 5% loss, that's a bad quarter; a 10% loss, that's a crisis; a 40% plus loss, that's financial Armageddon. And the companies leaving these aren't small-time brands, these are massive corporations that stood by The View through years of controversy. Remember Whoopi's Holocaust comments? Advertisers stayed. Remember the of political meltdowns, screaming fights, and outright misinformation? Not a single sponsor left. But now they're dropping the show like it's a nuclear disaster. So what changed? A leaked internal memo from a major corporation gives us the answer. We cannot risk association with a show facing credible allegations of coordinated defamation. That's corporate speak for this show is now so toxic that sticking around could actually damage our brand, and that's when television shows start dying. But here's where things get even worse for ABC. The financial losses aren't just bad. They're so severe that ABC execs are scrambling to contain the damage. Budget cuts already being discussed, staff reductions on the table, canceling The View altogether now a very real possibility. Yes, a show that's been on air for decades, a supposed untouchable daytime institution, might vanish overnight because these hosts couldn't keep their mouth shut. But let me tell you what's really scaring these corporations. It's not just about lost ad revenue, it's about what might come out if this case goes to trial, because trials are public and every single email, internal memo, and dirty little secret behind The View will be exposed for the entire world to see. And the big name advertisers know it. These are the same corporations that didn't flinch when The View hosts made controversial statements about religion, pushed narratives about race and politics, even attacked entire industries, yet suddenly they're acting like The View is radioactive. That tells you everything you need to know about how serious these allegations really are. And guess what? ABC still doesn't have a plan. Executives are scrambling, ad partners are reassessing their media partnerships, which, let's be real, is just corporate talk for we're out of here. And The View's hosts, they're completely blindsided. They never believed their corporate backers would actually abandon them, no matter how outrageous their behavior got. Now they're watching their show's financial foundation crumble beneath their feet, and for the first time in decades they're realizing they aren't untouchable. After all, the arrogance at ABC has finally backfired in spectacular fashion as advertisers flee The View like rats from a sinking ship. And even more shocking betrayal is unfolding behind closed doors. ABC isn't just losing money, it's tearing itself apart from the inside out. Executives are turning on each other in a civil war that could spell doom for Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny, and you won't believe who's secretly rooting for Karoline to win. For the first time in ABC's history, the news division is an open rebellion against The View, and this isn't minor office politics, this is full-scale warfare at one of America's biggest TV networks. ABC news executives have had enough of being dragged through the mud because of The View reckless behavior in a scathing internal memo that's now circulating throughout the company. They didn't hold back. The View's recklessness has compromised our entire news division's credibility. Just think about that for a second. The actual news division of a major television network is publicly condemning their own colleagues. That's not just an internal disagreement, that's career-ending stuff. ABC's entire leadership is now divided into two Warren camps: The View loyalists desperately trying to protect Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny at all costs; The View enemies, executives who see the show as a toxic liability that needs to be cut loose before it takes down the entire network. But wait, it gets even worse. Multiple sources have confirmed that several high-level ABC executives are secretly cooperating with Karoline Leavitt's legal team. Let me repeat that ABC's own leadership is helping build the case against their own show. These internal whistleblowers aren't Just angry employees, they're seasoned executives who've had enough of The View acting like it's above the law. One of them reportedly told colleague this lawsuit might be the only way to finally re-in The View and restore integrity to our network. Just let that sink in. When your own bosses are rooting for you to lose a lawsuit, you know you've crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. While Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny desperately try to save their show people they thought were on their side are secretly meeting with Karoline's attorneys. They're handing over documents just when ABC thought their internal betrayals were the worst of their problems. Karoline Leavitt decided to break her silence after weeks of strategic patience. She fired off a 5W missile that had network executives canceling vacations and rushing back to headquarters in a full-blown panic. ABC had been nervously awaiting some kind of settlement demand, maybe even a counteroffer to their desperate attempts at making this go away, but Karoline flipped the script in a way that no one saw coming. The 5 words that sent shockwaves through ABC: "I'm not just suing The View, I'm suing the entire system." That wasn't just a statement, that was a declaration of war against the entire media establishment. ABC thought this was about money. They were dead wrong. Karoline wasn't looking for a payout, she was looking to bring down the entire house. The reaction inside ABC headquarters was immediate chaos. Emergency meetings were called. Within hours, executives were rushing back from vacation. One insider described the panic as an extinction-level event. And it wasn't just about the lawsuit anymore, it was about what Karoline might expose, because here's where it gets even worse for ABC. Legal experts immediately noticed something chilling. Karoline's statement suggested that she had evidence not just against The View but against ABC's entire corporate hierarchy. One media attorney who reviewed the case said this kind of statement isn't made without substantial evidence to back it up. She's signaling she has documents that go far beyond a few nasty comments on a talk show, and that's when the real panic started. Karoline's media strategy has been flawless from the start. While The View hosts and ABC executives were scrambling to control the narrative, Karoline waited. She watched them spiral into chaos, and then at the perfect moment she dropped a knockout punch that completely changed the game. ABC never saw it coming. Her 5-word declaration sent advertisers running for the exits. It deepened the internal civil war within ABC, and it put The View's future in serious jeopardy. But that accountability Karoline was fighting for it just arrived wearing an FBI badge. What started as The View's smug character assassination has morphed into something that has executives frantically shredding documents at 2 a.m. because let's be real, the federal government doesn't investigate talk show squabbles unless there's something much darker lurking beneath the surface, and what they found has ABC insiders whispering 4 terrifying words: people could go to jail. Karoline's lawsuit has become the thread that, when pulled, is unraveling an entire tapestry of potentially illegal activities, and federal investigators aren't wasting their time on whether someone's feelings got hurt on daytime TV. No, they're digging into something far more serious. Evidence suggesting criminal coordination between media companies, political operatives, and corporate powers, potential violations of campaign finance laws, undisclosed political activities being run through ABC's network. This isn't just a civil lawsuit anymore, this is a federal case, and when the FBI starts requesting documents, ABC knows they've stumbled onto something huge. The documents and communications obtained by Karoline's legal team have opened what one insider called a Pandora's box of scandals. These materials don't just show mean-spirited hosts attacking a conservative figure, they potentially reveal a corrupt system of media manipulation that's operated unchecked for years. That's why ABC's legal team has completely shifted focus. They're no longer just fighting a lawsuit, they're coordinating with criminal defense attorneys. That's the kind of move you make when you expect federal charges, not just a civil judgment. The network that once laughed at Karoline's lawsuit is now facing the prospect of congressional hearings and federal indictments, and The View's hosts, the women who spent months mocking Karoline sitting across from Stern, faced FBI agents unable to hide behind the protection of their studio audience or friendly producers. Every snide comment, every coordinated attack, every email they sent could now become evidence in a federal case. One former prosecutor summed it up perfectly: when federal investigators get involved, you're no longer just fighting to protect your reputation or your bank account, you're fighting to stay out of prison. The stakes have escalated beyond anything ABC could have imagined. The executives who once believed their power made them untouchable are now experiencing what insiders describe as total panic, because here's the truth: you can't settle your way out of a federal investigation, you can't offer someone a job to make criminal charges disappear, and you definitely can't escape accountability when the FBI has your internal documents. For Karoline Leavitt, this isn't just personal vindication, it's about exposing a system that has used media platforms to manipulate public opinion for years. This isn't just about winning a lawsuit, this is about pulling back the curtain on corruption that affects every American who consumes news and the views hosts they're too busy scrambling to save their own careers to.